Regular Show has 8 seasons and a total of 244 episodes, making it one of Cartoon Network's longest running series ever besides Adventure Time. And with having that many episodes, of course comes with some of them being bad and or just kind of mid, but for the most part, Regular Show had a pretty solid run and offered some of the greatest and now most classic cartoon episodes ever created. Whilst there definitely is a lot more episodes to this list, in this video I'll be discussing the 3 episodes that are deemed to be the best episodes of Regular Show ever. Beginning with season 3, episode 17, Excellent. In this episode, Mordecai and Rigby see an ad on their TV showing a challenge called the Excellent Challenge, in which they have to eat a certain amount of food in under an hour in order to win a hat that says I'm excellent on it for free. And hearing this, Rigby of course instantly decides that he has to win this hat no matter what. Mordecai tries to talk him out of it as he doesn't think he could do it, but in the end Rigby ends up convincing him to go to the diner. And once they ask for the Excellent Challenge, even their waiter says that they shouldn't get it, but Rigby tells him the customer is always right and gets it despite this. But then directly after eating it, we jump to Mordecai and Rigby now in an ambulance as we discover that Rigby is actually allergic to eggs. And so with Rigby now thinking that he was now going to die and or just wouldn't be able to get the hat himself, he makes Mordecai promise that he'll get it for him before he then just actually starts dying in front of him. But we then cut to the hospital where the doctors then reveal to everyone that Rigby is now in a coma and that there's actually a chance he may never wake up again. Hearing this, Benson then starts blaming Mordecai for this happening as they were trying to do this instead of working, which is kind of understandable, but then again, he didn't really know that Rigby was allergic to eggs. But nonetheless, Mordecai then punches Benson, saying that he just wanted the hat and that this isn't about work anymore. But Benson then says to look where that got him and even points to Rigby, saying that he will only get Mordecai in the trouble. And this causes Mordecai to then say that they shouldn't take advice from Benson about friends as he has none, as well as that they only hang out with him because he is their boss. And then of course saying that now he's gonna go back to the restaurant to defeat the Excellent Challenge in order to keep his promise to Rigby, as that's what friends do for each other. This is genuinely one of Mordecai's best moments. Benson as a boss saying what he said is valid, but as a friend was pretty uncalled for, especially given how serious the situation now is. So yeah, it was nice to see Mordecai actually stand on business and stick up for Rigby. But anyways, Mordecai then gets the Excellent Challenge, but once the hour time limit runs out, he is literally nowhere near finishing it. He then tries to ask the waiter to just sell him the hat, but he says it's not for sale. And this then causes Mordecai to just throw the plate and leave. Honestly, a valid crash out. But we then cut to Mordecai now once again at the hospital apologizing to Rigby, which was pretty sad. But Benson then walks in and apologizes, and Skips reveals that he knew a guy who was obsessed with the hat like Rigby, as well as more or less dedicated his life to getting it. But then that one day after saying he figured out how to beat the challenge and going to attempt it, he just kind of up and disappeared, kind of creating some ominous suspicion on the truth behind this challenge. But nonetheless, they then say that they actually found his notebook, which contains all of the information on how to beat it. And hearing this, of course, Mordecai then goes on a training arc montage attempting to do so, whilst the song Holding Out for a Hero plays in the background, making this all the more intense. And then eventually he actually manages to eat the entire thing, and so now decides it's time to take the challenge at the diner once again. But then as the waiters see Mordecai's new tactics to win, they all start fighting the others trying to stop him from doing so, as if something bad was going to happen if he did. And then of course, as the time runs out, Mordecai gets transported to another dimension where a knight then tells him that he's made it to the final test of the challenge. The challenge being that he has to choose the correct hat, and that if he chooses wrong, he'll die. As we then also see the guy that attempted to beat it before now also dead, showing just how serious this really is. But regardless, Mordecai then grabs the hat that Rigby described to him and puts it on, and gets told by the knight that his choice was correct, thus sending him back to the normal world field, where he then puts the hat on Rigby's head, and then just like that, he wakes up from his coma. Rigby, of course, is happy that he got the hat for him, but Mordecai then says that he couldn't have done it without the other's help. Genuinely such good friendship and character development in this episode for all of them. But of course, Rigby then, once seeing another ad for finishing a steak in under an hour that will give him a free t-shirt, of course instantly tries to convince Mordecai to go do the challenge with him, kind of showing that Benson's statement earlier about Rigby only leading Mordecai to getting in trouble definitely does have some truth to it. Regardless though, this episode is such a classic, and the extremely serious and yet extremely unserious stakes, combined with some good friendship development with Mordecai and Benson mixed in, definitely made this one of the best episodes of Regular Show. But anyways, the next episode we'll be taking a look at is Season 4, Episode 1, Exit 9B. This episode begins with someone coming into the park and shooting everyone because they apparently didn't sell something to him. Mordecai and Rigby manage to escape though using some sort of device, but the house is then completely destroyed, instantly starting this episode out like it's a movie and showcasing that it's going to be a lot more serious and clearly contain a lot of action. But anyways, we then cut to the moment where Skips and Pops seemingly first met, but then as Pops leaves, he also almost runs over Muscle Man, who then because of this meets High Five Ghost, and High Five Ghost then meets Benson whilst delivering him pizza whilst he's seemingly working on building the park. But then it's quickly revealed that all of our characters are actually brainwashed and this isn't the past, as we see the guy who shot them in the beginning of the episode now seemingly taking over the park. But Mordecai and Rigby then return and head to find Skips with a document, but then of course when they find him, they see that he no longer has his memories. Even so though, Rigby then manages to get him to snap back to normal pretty quickly after bringing up the woman that we found out Skips was in love with in the episode Skips Story, which is also another pretty amazing episode that I might talk about in a future video. But anyways, Mordecai then explains to Skips that the guy who brainwashed them has been trying to buy the park for months, but now has obviously taken it by force, and that now they're the only ones who can take it back, as they then show him the document that is what actually would declare the park as a national landmark if signed by everyone who works there. And so in order to get the signatures, they sneak back into the park and find a journal containing information on everyone's new brainwashed identities before they then go and find all of them and make them remember everything one by one, from Pops to then Muscle Man to then High Five Ghost. But then when attempting to find Benson at the park, Thomas appears and more or less causes them all to get caught. But then when they ask the guy what his deal with the park is, he actually says that he doesn't have a deal with the park and that his deal is actually with Mordecai and Rigby, as they had beat his dad's universe record in the episode High Score, just instantly adding some amazing continuity to this episode, showing that the actions that they commit in prior episodes actually do have effects on others that may and or will actually sometimes return. But anyways, he then reveals that his goal is to basically build a gateway to hell to bring back his father, as well as all of the other villains that they killed throughout the series. And he then actually does this, but as Skips then says it's rude not to invite some of their own friends, the Guardians of Eternal Youth, Gary, Death, Tecmo, and the God of Basketball all show up, quickly making this episode genuinely feel like the Regular Show equivalent of Avengers Endgame, as they all of them begin to fight in an epic battle whilst Mordecai and Rigby try to make their way through to Benson. There was genuinely so many character callbacks in this episode, it's insane. But anyways, as Benson is about to crush Mordecai and Rigby, he sees them spinning out screaming on the cart, which of course instantly gives him a flashback to all the times they've done that throughout the series. But then they pull out some even more classics, from ham boning to not setting up the chairs to their whoa, all eventually leading to Benson finally remembering everything. Yet then after he signs the papers to make the park a national landmark and they believe that now they've won, the enemies say that they forgot someone, and that someone is of course Thomas, who then almost dies trying to stop them. But as he fell from the bridge and the others went to save him, of course Thomas signed the papers, thus officially making the park a national landmark and killing all of the villains as Exit 9B is destroyed once and for all. This episode is genuinely a movie, as I stated earlier, once again bringing a villain that wants to destroy Mordecai and Rigby for destroying their father in a previous episode, just making this episode continuity wise so well written, but then once again also just the end game level fight with a bunch of character callbacks, and then just seeing them try to make everyone remember and how they do so by showing a bunch of memories from prior episodes. It just all really showed just how much of a serious narrative and or plot regular show truly has. So yeah, with that said, this episode is definitely one of the best in the series. But now on to the final episode, or actually 2 episodes that we'll be discussing in this video, as well as the final episodes of regular show, season 8 episode 27 and episode 28, a regular epic final battle part 1 and 2. Part 1 begins with us seeing Pops run away from Anti-Pops whilst he tries to get his hands on this firefly, which then when grabbing gets duped out for a pencil, but then we see that this was actually a nightmare, but it obviously will be very important later and more or less become a reality. So it's pretty interesting that Pops was actually having this nightmare, more or less foreshadowing it. But anyways, Mordecai and Rigby then show Pops apparently his home planet, as we discover that they are here to obviously fight Anti-Pops as he is trying to destroy the universe, instantly setting the stakes up for a proper finale. But anyway, some citizens of Pops planet then take them to the supposed guardian of the planet, who says that they only exist to witness this battle every 14 billion years, as well as that she has never seen the battle end in victory, but basically in a shared death between Pops and Anti-Pops that then causes the reset of the universe. But this time they actually had some time to prepare, as they had beat Anti-Pops to the planet, and with this time they learned some more history about the battle, where we learn that Pops is, I guess, the only perfect one out of all of the citizens ever born here, and that his real name is Mega Cranus. But because his existence was so perfect, the universe more or less had to make another version of him to be in balance. But then of course they see that these ancient tapestries also have all of them on it, showing that truly everything that's about to go down has happened multiple times before. But Mordecai, seeing this, then says since they know where he's gonna be during the battle, they can set some traps, and so they then set a bunch of them before Anti-Pops arrives. And so as the battle then begins, he then instantly gets caught off guard by multiple of their traps, and as he's crushed, it makes them believe that they were victorious and defeated him. But of course he then comes up from the rubble and says that it tickled, making it seem like their attempts were futile and that history was going to repeat itself as part 1 of this finale ends and part 2 begins. Anti-Pops tells Pops that the two can 1v1, and that if Pops wins then the universe will be saved, but if he wins he'll obviously destroy it. And at first the battle is a pretty fair match, but then Pops crushes him with a boat, and since he knocked him down he technically won. But of course Anti-Pops doesn't stick to his word, saying that a deal is only as good as the man who makes it, which honestly was to be expected. But anyway, Streaming then appears from the streaming war they had prior to this, and Muscle Man asks the guardian of the planet if she's gonna help them, and she says that she's supposed to stay neutral, but then she just decides to actually help them. And then HD, DVD, and Blu-ray also appear to help them, which makes Anti-Pop say that this wasn't in the tapestry, showing that this time things really are playing out differently, as the Baby Ducks and Sure Shot then also appear alongside a bunch of other characters from prior episodes, as they all then do the ultimate team up, becoming a giant robot in which they all control, which they then use to defeat Streaming once and for all. But of course now they were still left with Anti-Pops to deal with, who then starts using his powers to kill everyone, and even seemingly killing Muscle Man and High Five Ghost, which makes Pops basically start to go Super Saiyan before then turning into a giant version himself with godlike abilities. But then as Pops and Anti-Pops are about to collide, Mordecai remembers seeing this in the tapestry and realizes that this would be the moment that would end the universe, and so he tries to stop them by driving in between their fists, but then their fists collide and the universe is seemingly destroyed. As the intro to the episode then plays, before the very first episode of the series, The Power begins to play. But then as Mordecai and Rigby are reenacting the events of that episode, Rigby realizes that they've done done this before. And this realization alone then makes him remember everything, or at least somewhat, as he believes he's just seeing into the future. But anyways, they then dig up the box set that contains the entire story leading up to now, and at first Mordecai doesn't believe Rigby is telling the truth, but then once he touches the box, he then finally also remembers everything. As they then look around the park and see white silhouettes, making Rigby think that they're in a glitch and that time didn't actually reset. And so in order to get back to the end of their story, they actually use the keyword that they used in the episode The Power. But then as they interrupt Pops and Anti-Pop's battle, he shoots at them, sending them flying into the planet, but this also sends Pops flying through a portal, which takes him into the sketch of the pilot of Regular Show, which was already super cool. But then as he flies out, he then even flies through the Regular Show logo. And then right after this, they start to get put in the storyboard notes of the episode. The fourth wall breaking and or meta-ness of this episode is actually awesome. But anyways, then instead of fighting Anti-Pops, Pops then gives him a hug. And doing this then actually makes Anti-Pops start to have feelings, which then turns him back into his normal form. But as he says that if he lets go of him, he's gonna kill him, Pops says that he's not gonna let go, as the two then fly towards this sun-like planet, and Mordecai and Rigby beg him not to do it, but Pops tells them not to worry, as this is the happy ending, as he then gives them his final goodbyes before then sacrificing himself to kill Anti-Pops once and for all. As Mordecai and Rigby then cry, believing that this would cause the end of the universe. But then we cut to the news channel that says it's been 3 years since everything happened, and that the park dome is finally returning, as we then see it land right where it belongs, as Mordecai and all the others come out and get celebrated by everyone for their heroism, and Mordecai is reunited with his family, and Rigby is reunited with his. Muscle Man is reunited with Starla, who apparently had a kid while he was gone. Skips reunites with Tecmo. Eileen reunites with Margaret. High Five Ghost reunites with his girlfriend. Benson with his pig. And then just to celebrate their return to Earth even more, Rigby then finally kisses Eileen, which was great to see. But then of course they have to attend the sad funeral for Pops. His sacrifice and death was truly one of the best in any show ever. But of course all of the others live on, as we actually get a glimpse at the future. As we see Mordecai becomes a painter, Rigby and Eileen settle down and have kids, Benson continues to work at the park alongside a new generation of workers, Muscleman and Starla also settle down and have 6 kids, Skips continues to work at his car shop, High Five Ghost starts DJing with his girlfriend, and then eventually Mordecai actually meets a new woman who is a bat, who he then at some point ends up marrying and having his own kids with. Eventually, years and years later, Pop's dad ends up dying as well, and as they put up his statue right next to Pops, everyone then gets together to take one big photo in front of them, as we see that this was actually the 25-year park reunion. Before we then see Mordecai and Rigby talking, saying they can't believe that it's been 25 years, but of course that they also wish that Pops could have been here to see it, but also that if it wasn't for Pops, this wouldn't even be happening. But they then say they should go see if they have some of their old video games and do their iconic whoa one last time, as we then pan out and see just how much things have changed, before we then see what appears to be heaven, as a Regular Show tape is then ejected from a TV, and we hear Pop's voice as he says, "Jolly good show." Genuinely, this is the perfect ending for this series, and one of the most perfect endings in any cartoon ever. Just insanely high stakes, and added so much just insane lore to their world, so many good character callbacks, insanely good fights with a bunch of Dragon Ball references, and then just the meta concepts of them realizing that they are truly in a show. Just offered really good writing and commentary and jokes that added so much to this finale. But then us even getting to see all of these characters in the future, or 25 years later, just showing what they're up to and that they truly will continue to live on even if this is the finale. Just actually so amazing. So yeah, this is easily the best episode of Regular Show. But anyways, with that said, that is going to be the end of the video. So if you want to see me talk about more Regular Show episodes in the future, or even talk about the new Regular Show series when it comes out,